Yesterday was overall pretty crazy for Helldivers as the game's first balance patch went live and the comment sections started filling up. Now, there were some awesome additions to the game like the environmental hazards and some support weapon super buffs, which I'll touch on in a bit, but, and you knew that was coming, there was also some not so popular changes crammed into yesterday's patch as well, along with some accompanying dev shenanigans that was downright weird. Welcome to the channel. This is LtBuzzLitebeer, and following yesterday's balance patch, Arrowhead also released a full firepower balancing wall of text blog and what looks like an attempt to calm the Helldivers hordes. Remember to hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive my latest upload alerts, and let's check out all the latest from Helldivers.
System of failure.
Alright, so I've included chapters in this one as usual, so you can skip around and repeat sections as needed. First up, two pieces of Helldivers housekeeping to kick this one off. The first is that the Super Credit Store offer has been reset, complete with the FS38 Eradicator Speed and Stamina Regen oriented body armor, with reduced recoil for crouching or prone, along with 50% explosive damage resistance, which can be clutch. The other body armor is the B27 Fortified Commando Heavy Set with the extra padding passive talent for even higher armor ratings. I mean, 200 armor is stout, but you will be giving up speed and stamina regen. The second piece of housekeeping is that the major order has now been switched off of Heath and Angel's Venture. By the way, great job. We took them, collect those 45 war bonds, and we have now been tasked with liberating Tien Quan and those valuable mech factories. Also, today's personal or daily order is to kill 2 Bile Titans for 15 war bonds, which is just, well, anyways, good luck on this one, Helldivers. So, yesterday's balancing patch, where do you start? I will of course discuss the changes to the Breaker, Railgun, and Shield Gen backpack, but it looks like Arrowhead kind of knew ahead of time they were about to get some heat from all of this, and they had a massive balancing blog prepared from longtime dev Patrick Lasota, head of product testing at Arrowhead, who is responsible for listening to feedback and balancing the game. And he had some interesting things to say on all matters weapons and stratagems as they relate to Helldivers and how they kind of balance them out. Now this is a literal great wall of text, and I'm not going to read through all of it. Check in the video description for a link to this one. But I do want to point out one key area, starting off with Lasota's statement on primary weapons. Just bear with me, I'm going to read verbatim the first part of his statement. It goes by very quickly. Here's what he says. First, I'd like to speak to the general power of primary weapons. Many have commented that they aren't powerful enough and are unable to deal with all the enemies either by the amount of ammunition required or their raw DPS. This is very much intentional. You need to rely on your stratagems and the stratagems of your team to deal with all the enemies effectively, either by Eagle airstrikes, orbitals, support weapons, or turrets. Some of your loadout team should be tailoring their loadout to killing the weaker stuff more efficiently. This doesn't mean that your primary weapon shouldn't feel good to use, but please understand that it is primary only in the sense that it's something you always spawn with. Now, I've read through this statement several times, and each time I seem to return to this portion that says you need to rely on your stratagems. And I feel it's necessary to point out a few critical errors here, or oversights, let's call them, in this statement. The first is that we still only get 4 stratagem spots in our loadouts, and the devs clearly want us using some sort of support weapon. And then they also advocate and push us over to use things like supply backpacks, possibly a rover or a shield, and that leaves 2 offensive stratagems left for us. 3 if you forego the support backpack, making them extremely valuable. And you have a limited amount, and of course there are cooldowns, etc. associated with these stratagems. add in the fact that we have these game mechanics that frequently limit your use of stratagems, like planets only allowing for 3 of them, scrambled call-ins that double the deployment times, or the random stratagem effect that could have you calling in a 500 kg directly on top of your head when you were expecting to call down a railgun. Now, I know you can see the stratagem before you deploy it and then resequence it if the scrambled selection is not what you wanted, but the point is, number one, we have limited uses of these super valuable stratagems. Number two, the game frequently makes them more difficult to use. And so, number three, that leaves us with those primary, secondary, and support weapons to keep our butts alive. So, yes, we need powerful primary weapons and enough ammo to keep us in the fight, at least until our stratagems come down off of cooldown. I can see what this wall of text is trying to accomplish by explaining things and trying to make sense to the player base, but anytime you're left scrambling to explain what was done and why, after the fact, that usually is because whatever occurred did not go down the way you had initially intended. Which now provides me the perfect place to switch over to yesterday's Breaker, Railgun, and Shield gen changes, which, by the way, were not the biggest changes in yesterday's patch. And by the way, I don't seem to see anyone actually talking about this, and I'm going to cover it all in a moment. But first, the Breaker. Yes, it has slightly less ammo and slightly more recoil, and I really didn't notice it. Overall, it was a slight change, and I love using and will still use the Breaker. Also, the Punisher got a sizable buff yesterday, and I experimented with it, and it hits pretty hard. So there's that as well. Sadly, the Railgun is not what it used to be. Safe mode, unsafe mode, I used it pre and post patch. And the one thing I can say about it now is that it is wildly inconsistent. I'm even charging it up to 4 seconds on unsafe mode and still just drowning chargers and shots landed, even on the legs, and at this point I've just moved on. And finally, the shield is still viable, but when it now breaks, expect a doubled cooldown period from before, whereas it used to be 6-ish seconds, now it's close to 11 to 12 seconds before it returns. Did it need adjusting? Did it not? You know, I kind of lean towards no. It wasn't this almighty get-out-of-jail-free card pre-patch, it just gave us a bit more protection, which is especially useful on those 7s, 8s, and 9s when you're just getting pounded by automaton rocket barrages and all that splash damage. It's just insane. Also, while we're kind of discussing stratagems and support weapons, I would like to mention that you should not be sleeping on the arc thrower, laser cannon, and flamethrower, of which the laser cannon and flamethrower both got sizable buffs in yesterday's patch. We just got done running a level 8 and a 3-man squad using 2 arc throwers and 1 laser cannon, and it took a lot of coordination and using a very specific formation against all of these termitid swarms, but we managed to exfil and get off planet. Now, the arc thrower is seriously great at clearing mobs. The laser cannon also hits pretty well and now has increased armor pen, and the flamethrower is really effective versus those pesky chargers, as you can solo one down in like 5 to 6 seconds, just as long as you don't get caught in the AoE flame effects. But now onto the biggest change in yesterday's patch, which I don't see listed anywhere here in these patch notes, and it has to do with the overall enemy AI tuning. Things like spawn rates, how aggressive they are, and even their overall speed. Now, I run with a highly experienced squad. We've all logged a decent amount of hours in Helldivers, and we all agree that there was definitely a heavy, and I cannot emphasize that word enough, heavy buff given to the enemy AI. We're landing planetside on level 8s and just instantly getting overrun. I mean, the bugs just rush you from all angles before you can even call in a support weapon. Bug breaches are coming out of everywhere, and from those breaches, you get massive amounts of Bile Titans, chargers, and now these modified spitters that shoot acid mortars out of their backsides. The density of these hordes has also been buffed up considerably. They just rush you so fast, whereas before they might, linger around a specific point of interest. They also seem to now have better tracking, actually anticipating which direction you're going to go around an object, and then they switch their direction to meet you head on from the other side. And finally, their speed. Woo! Even with light armor on, they are not only keeping pace, but they're running us down from behind, and I mean quickly. Forget calling it a stratagem. You don't have time because it's now just become this chaotic death race of bedlam. Seriously, we were able to muscle through level 9 Helldives pre-patch, but since yesterday's update, a level 8 really pushed our squad to its tactical limits. Needless to say, that patch, those changes, and everything associated with them has caused a pretty serious rip in the Helldivers player base, whereas it used to all be about democracy, liberty, and I smell a traitor. It was very immersive and themed towards the Helldivers game. Well, now it's become get good, scrub, and oh, they murked the game, I hate it, I'm out. This fracture in the Helldivers community was further fanned by rogue Arrowhead devs poking the bear, so to speak, over in their official Discord server, with this one stating, "Man, watching you all cry amuses me so much," prompting a full discussion about it over on Reddit with this title, quote, "I'm all for balance changes, but why are devs antagonizing the player base?" Which is a totally valid question to be asking. Now, this brought about a full response from Johan, acknowledging the dev behavior and stating, quote, "It is not our intention that this should be the behavior from us." We also saw another rogue Arrowhead dev posting a statement beginning with, "I'm feeding the rage a little for my own entertainment here, just so you know." And then they continued on about the brainless playstyles that were now less viable. And yet again, Johan, the CEO at Arrowhead, had to step up and respond and apologize for this type of behavior, which is professional on his side. And yeah, it's the right thing to see done. But still, where is this venom coming from? Especially from the Arrowhead devs, who we've been so supportive of. I'd much rather be reporting about cool news coming to the Helldivers game, like the fact that we are now tasked with liberating Tien Quan in order to get control of those valuable mech factories. And oh, by the way, again, great job keeping control of Heath and Angel's venture for those fat 45 war bonds. But I think, at least in my humble opinion here, that we've been distracted by the shiny objects directly in front of our face, and we've lost sight of what has actually happened inside the game. Ultimately, 3 rounds and a breaker, a modified railgun that is inconsistent, and a shield regen being doubled has not made the game that much harder, because the real changes are those that I mentioned to those enemy AI, those spawn rates, those densities, the massive aggro changes, and speed buffs they've received. Now, you may not see it in a 4, 5, or 6. I mean, I honestly don't know, but it is clear as day now on 7s on up. Anyways, keep fighting the good fight out there, Helldivers. Keep it civil. I mean, this community is still incredibly strong, and we're going to get through this together, but it just felt like an overload of spice that hit us yesterday between those balance changes, the massive changes that are not listed here to enemy behavior, and then those rogue developer comments, which, by the way, felt really odd to me, especially considering that Arrowhead has not had a single hair out of place since launch. Again, making yesterday just really weird. Anyways, that's all we've got time for today. Remember to hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive my latest upload alerts. All my socials can be found in the video description, including Twitter and Discord, where I stay pretty active on both. Also, check again in the video description for an open invite link to my Discord server, where we have a fast-growing Helldivers player base. We've got areas for things like tips and tricks, general discussions, and of course, the ever-popular LFG, or looking for group areas, where you can find like-minded Helldivers to squad up with. And while you're there, make sure to use those free Discord voice channels so you can switch on those mics and bring the pain. Shout out to the now over 203,000 channel subscribers, which is just mental to be saying. Thank you so much for all the love. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer signing off.